So, after the wind and unbelievable annoyance of that last few days, here we've got another nice day, and today I'm going to show you what's involved in repairing a leaky oil seal. Now, if you look on this stanchion, you can see the marks. See, that's where the oil seal was weeping. The one on the other leg's not that bad, but I'm going to overhaul both. So let's just imagine you've taken the bike for an MOT and they've said, needs new oil seals, mate. Oh dear, that's a bit of a job. Well, no, it's not really. It's a bit of a job until you actually see what's involved, and it's really quite easy. There's no reason why you can't have a go yourself. So I'm going to show you how you do it with minimal tools. Okay. So the first thing you have to consider, you've got to get the front wheel off of the ground, which means we've got to put something underneath here. Normally people use a trolley jack or something like that to jack it up, but I want to use minimal tools to show you how to do it. So if you was putting something underneath here, it could be anything. Could be a block, could be a wheel, could be a stand. I mean, you could put it underneath here, but it means then that the whole weight of the bike is being taken by the exhaust, which is not really a good idea, to be honest. This particular bike, look, it's got frame rails, so the good thing would be to put something underneath the frame rails so that the front wheel was clear of the bike. So I'm going to find something in the garage now which will keep this up, because all we need is to get the front wheel off the ground so we can then inspect it and take it all off and strip all the forks out. So let's see what we can find. Well, as you can see, I've pushed the bike up and I've put a couple of stands, just ordinary car stands, underneath the rails of the frame, so the exhaust and the engine are not interrupted at all. Plus, now the front wheel is miles off the ground. You can work on the front end completely with ease without any problems, and that gives us the opportunity of doing whatever we want. Now, whilst it's off the ground, good opportunity to check the bearings. Now, when you're checking wheel bearings, it's a good idea to get somebody to hold the wheel, the steering, hard over, and then you can do a top and bottom to see if there's any rock. Also, spin it to see if there's any hard cracking noises or any roughness. You can always hear a bearing when the bearings go. You can always hear them. This one sounds actually really nice. Currently, at the moment, the brake is still connected, but it's not dragging. Let's just say you've got a dragging brake. This is an excellent opportunity with the wheel up in the air to give the brakes a good going over. Check that everything's fine. Check the condition of the disc. Check the condition of the caliper. Remove the caliper if necessary. Those two bolts there. Remove the caliper, and then you can slide the caliper off, and then you can have a proper opportunity to check the condition of the wheel bearings. Now, if you wanted to check the head bearings, grab the forks underneath on both sides in the same way and try and lift the bearings away from you, push towards you and away. Now if the head bearings are worn, you'll get dunk 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 movement there, or it'll be ratchety as you turn it. In this instance, once again, this particular bike, the bearings are perfect, but I'm going to show you what's involved later on in removing them, so that if you do have to remove them, or even if you just have to adjust them, I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so forks, the oil seal in the forks. First thing we've got to do is remove the front wheel. Look at the front wheel. There's a nut there. There's a bolt there which holds the wheel spindle at this end. That is a pinch bolt. So when you're undoing that nut, don't undo the pinch bolt until you've got the nut off. Because if you do, the spindle might rotate, which is going to make it more difficult. Whereas that bolt is gripping the spindle, so that nut will come undone easy. Once that nut's undone, then remove the pinch bolt, and then you can pull or unscrew, depending on the arrangement. You can pull this out, that the wheel will drop down. Before you do that, always remove the caliper, because the caliper will get in the way, it'll hit the wheel. Undo those two bolts, lift it up, put it up somewhere, suspend it with a bungee so that it's not straining the cable, and then the wheel will drop out with ease. Alright, so I'm going to do that now, and then we'll have a look at the next bit. Off comes the nut. Remove the pinch bolt. Well, you don't have to remove it, you just have to loosen it. Once it's loosened, that will release its grip on the spindle. Then the spindle can be unwound or pushed out, depending on the layout of the bike. The two bolts that hold the caliper, remove them. That will allow you to take the caliper off. These bolts have been nicely copper slipped at some point in their life, so they'll come off quite easily. There you go. You hang the caliper so that it's not straining the hose, and then the wheel can be removed. You can pull this spindle out, support the weight of the wheel. Out it comes. Keep an idea of where the spacers go, what spacer goes where. The speedo drive's on the other side. Move the wheel out of the way. Just looking at the wheel, there's the wheel bearing. It's a sealed for life bearing. There's one on the other side. That there is the drive for the speedo drive. So they're fairly straightforward and easy to replace. I'll show you how to do that later on what goes where and where it goes, so that you can keep everything locked up, so that when you come to rebuild it, you haven't lost that important bracket or bolt or nut. See, that's the wheel spindle. Put that to one side. The 2 bolts that will go in the caliper, I always think it's a good idea. Put them back in the caliper where they went so that you won't lose them. Then the next thing is to remove these bolts here. Remove all these bolts in order to allow the front mudguard to come off. When the front mudguard's off, the 2 fork tubes are then independent. We can remove one at a time. Okay, so gently take these off. Sometimes they can be very tight. Be careful with them. Bit WD-40. Take your time. Don't rush. And then once that's off, we'll look at removing the tubes. So the mudguard is now out of the way. So the only thing retaining this fork leg, let's remove this fork leg first on its own, is that nut there. That nut there. And on this particular bike, on most bikes that's not the case, these 2 nuts here, which is holding this clip-on on. Now if we undo those nuts, this fork leg will just drop out, and then we'll be able to overhaul it as a separate entity. Okay, so I'm going to undo those nuts, and then you can see me slide the tube out. So these bolts have all been loosened. So now if we get hold of that, look, notice how it's coming down. Now as it comes down, you've got to be prepared to catch anything that is retained, like this clip-on. So you can then safely put that to one side as it comes down. Also, this here holds the headlight, so that then as that comes through, that is the fork leg completely removed. With the fork leg removed, you can operate it a few times to ensure that everything is as it should be. This must be dead straight. If this is bent, then basically the stanchion is scrap. The important thing now is the stanchion must be cleaned up, because if in this area where the forks actually go up and down, if there's any corrosion, then the stanchion may be scrapped, or it can be reconditioned by rechroming. It's okay to have some corrosion above where the fork slides, because obviously you can clean that up as best you can, but the seal won't be going over that. So because the seal won't be going over that, it doesn't really matter. We just clean all of this up the best we can. And then we're going to look at what's involved in removing the seal. So there you go. After a little wash up, that's actually quite nice. That's quite nice. So what we ought to do now, this nut here has to be undone. Don't take it right off, but loosen it. Once that's loosened, as you take that off, there's a spring inside there, and that will push that out. So you've got to be a little bit careful. Also, deep inside there, you'll see there's a socket head screw. You need to undo that socket head screw as well, because that holds the bottom half of the stanchion assembly in the bottom of the leg. So loosen that, and then we can take that off. The spring will come out, take that off, and then we can physically take the stanchion and the leg apart. I'll show you how. And then we can remove the oil seal, the all important oil seal. So the top of the suspension leg, there's your nut. This is adjustable. You can adjust the performance of the front forks by screwing that in and out. So obviously the best thing to do when you're removing this is to have it minimized, in order that the spring pressure underneath the nut is reduced. So when you undo this nut, because this is going to fly off when you undo it, so bring that out as far as you can, undo this, there's a pallet shim underneath it, and then underneath the pallet shim is this big long tube, and then underneath the tube is the fork spring. So you can see how that's pushing on there. So the spring is trying to push that out. So when you undo this, this is going to fly out. So be careful when you're undoing this top nut. When it comes off, make sure you don't lose this little shim. And this bit of tube stays in the fork, but that will go fly about. So find that, and then that's the system. Alright. Right, now this little Allen key, undo it at the bottom of the leg until it's completely free, and then once it's completely free, pull it right out so that then you're ready for the next stage. Then if you look inside the leg, you will see this has already been disassembled because my camera died when I was doing the disassembly. But you'll see this circlip. The oil seal will be underneath this circlip with the stanchion coming up. You literally just prise that circlip out of the way, get that out, and then that'll leave the stanchion, oil seal and everything sitting in there. And then you come to the next step. So now, having taken that nuts completely out and taken that circlip off, you grab hold of each part and then you pull it violently. What happens is it comes out with the oil seal, the ring and the top bearing. That's how it come apart. Then you can remove the oil seal, ready for reassembly. I couldn't film me actually doing it because the batteries died on the camera. So here is one front fork completely stripped. You've got the stanchion, look, here, and then you've got the dust cover, the circlip, the oil seal, the washer, and then the top bearing. On the other side you've got the slider, and in the bottom of the slider is that section now, which has got the bolt at the bottom, look, then the spring, and then on top of that you've got a washer, the tube, the pallet shim, and then the adjustable top. And that is a set of forks. So what you have to do, or the one fork, what you have to do is clean everything up, make sure it's all in really good condition, replace the oil seal, that's normally all we have to do, make sure the stanchion is good, and then we can put it all together, refill it with the fresh oil, the correct grade, the correct amount, and then we do that with the other fork leg, and then we put them back on the bike, and we've got a nice set of forks.